Hi everyone, this is Britt Simon. So I've got a little gap of time. I've got a few minutes to myself. I thought I'd jump on live and take some questions and see if you've got any questions about any of the DV years that are going on right now. Let's start off with the two that I always get right at the beginning, the 2 years, which is DV 2020 and DV 2021. So, as many of you will know, there was an appeal hearing on September 16th. That was in front of a panel of 3 judges. The appeal was about the earlier decisions from Judge Mehta, where Judge Mehta reserved visas for DV 2020 and then later for DV 2021. And the government is appealing that decision, doesn't want the visas to be issued, and is just slowing down the whole process, right? So the various lawyers went in front of the appeal judges. I thought we had a pretty good hearing, frankly. One judge was clearly leaning towards, sympathizing with our perspective. The other judge, especially based on the comments of the lawyers that were actually in the room, was leaning in the other direction against our perspective. And there was one judge, Judge Katsas, that was sort of in the middle. And that's basically the vote we need to win. We need 2 of the 3 judges to agree with the perspective that that the government don't have the right to stop this decision by the government. And it mainly hinges that there was a lot of discussion about the president's ability to block entry. The central issue there is the president of the United States does have the right, and we're not disputing this, to block entry into the USA. But what the government did in DV 2020 and DV 2021 effectively was ruin those 2 years, because they chose to interpret that absolute power over entry to mean that they should not go through the process of adjudication, of processing cases, and that cost a lot of people a lot of heartache. And whilst we were able to get quite a few thousand visas issued in DV 2020 and DV 2021, there are still many unissued. And so Judge Mehta had previously reserved visas for both of those years and ordered that they should be issued. So that was the decision. The decision was those people were going to be given the visas. But the government then appealed, and it was the appeal that was heard on September 16th. Now, we're not going to have a decision on the appeal until probably very late this year or early next year. Okay, it's literally as long as that. Now, originally, Judge Mehta had said that these visas would be issued in fiscal year 2022. That clearly isn't going to happen. And so there will be another deadline set if we win the appeal. I tend to think we're going to win the appeal. I thought the arguments made by the lawyers was pretty good. I think the case that the government presented had no new information, had some pretty shaky ground on key aspects. So I feel good about the chances of the appeal, and I think the lawyers do too. So which is far more important than my reading of it. So that's DV 2020 and DV 2021. We don't know. The other typical questions I get on those 2 years is who will be the lucky people chosen for the various reserve visas. Well, we don't know what the ordering will be, but it's likely to be case number order. It could also be the order in which those cases were documentarily qualified. We'll have to see. We don't know for sure, right? So it's too early to predict all that. Okay, so that's DV 2020 and DV 2021. Let's talk about. Let's take this question. Do I think that DV 2022 and 2021 lawsuits will affect the DV 2023 scheduling? Essentially, no. It's not going to be until, let's say, spring of next year at the very earliest, when we would start to see DV 2020 and 2021 activity. And through those two cases, there's about 20,000 visas. Now, 20,000 visas, roughly about 10,000 cases, that's not a great deal. That's not going to take them very long to issue those visas. And it doesn't have to impact the DV 2023 year. And that assumes, of course, that the government would be set a deadline of only a few months after the appeal is gone through, which I don't think is likely either. I think they'll probably spread that issuing over a longer period of time. They'll allow a longer period of time to issue those visas. And it doesn't really have to stress or strain DV 2023. So no, I don't think you need to worry about that. I mean, the government have said in various declarations that they are preparing in various ways for that extra workload. But honestly, I don't think that's going to be an issue. So we'll see. Okay, if my wife wins and I join her, can I travel? Can I still travel? I've been permanently banned because of a fake passport number. Oh, God. Why do you lie to the government? Why do people lie to the US government and then wonder, act surprised when it costs them problems later? I don't understand why people do that. It depends. So you say you've been permanently banned. Permanent ban is permanent ban. You can apply for a waiver of that permanent ban. You should probably work with a lawyer about that. But God, don't lie to the American government about when you're asking for immigration. Not about your passport. I mean, God, give me strength. It's just crazy. Okay. Britt, if I use my picture for DV lottery entry, will the same can be used for my wife's section when she is filling the family section as a husband? Yeah. So let's firstly talk about that. This is a good question. So a married couple, people get very confused about this, but for DV 2024, that'll be starting in a few days' time, essentially. So a married couple or two unmarried people can both enter, right? That everybody is entitled to enter. Each person that enters is going to later be challenged about whether they meet the requirements for education or work experience and whether they've filled the form incorrectly and all that sort of stuff. But the only real advantage that a married couple has saves them a little bit of time, in a sense, is that when they can enter, they can add their spouse. They should add their spouse. They have to add their spouse, right? And so what you're asking is, okay, you're going to do your entry and you've got your photo. Can your wife then do her entry and use your photo for her entry as her spouse? Yeah, absolutely. You only need to take one photo of each one of you, and then you'll both enter, the same photos. Just be sure to get it the right way around. I have seen people who entered the wrong photos. They switched them around, right? Because they got confused when they did the second entry, I suppose, and somehow uploaded the wife's photo in place of the husband. If you do that, you'll get disqualified. So be very careful about that. But apart from that, yeah, absolutely, you can use the same photo. And as long as you're taking that photo a recent photo, then everything's fine, okay? Asia 20K, interviewed middle of June, got administrative processing, sent everything requested on the same day. Didn't hear back from them till now. What do you think? Do I still have a chance? Yeah, look, until September 30th ends, you have a chance, right? You interviewed in the middle of June. There will be some more issuances this week. There are 52,000 visas issued at the moment. So there are about just under 3,000 left. There, 2,800, that sort of number. It's around about that number, right? There will probably be some more AP cases cleared this week. Let's say 1,000 to 1,500 cases. And there'll probably be another 1,000 or so cases issued from interviews that will happen this week and probably at the end of last week. There's probably some sort of some stuff going through. So that's basically where I think those visas will be used. Without a doubt, we're going to see the highest number of cases issued ever in a DV lottery. The government have turned it round. It's been, in many ways, it's been a bad and difficult year, but in But if you stand back and look at the numbers from a global perspective, history will go down that this was one of the highest numbers. In 5 years' time, they'll look back at this year and say, wow, they did a hell of a job that year. They issued a lot of visas, right? So, and it's only if you were involved in DV 2022 that you know the reality is a little bit more, a little bit more complex than that, right? But anyway, so Omar, you have a chance, but how it will go, I don't know. I don't know anything about your case. I don't know where they're at with your processing. Okay, so good luck, though, Omar. Hope you get it. FO says, you're from Cameroon. What are the documents, in your opinion, that supports bona fide marriage? In the DV case, the marriage certificate is issued after the lottery results. Okay, so if you win the lottery and then you get married because you have got a girlfriend or whatever that you realize you can't afford to leave behind, if that relationship is genuine and existed prior to the lottery, there's no problem. It makes perfect sense that you would marry that person because you're in love and you've just won a life-changing lottery that means you're going to move to America and you don't want to leave her, right? So it makes perfect sense. Now, if there's anything fraudulent about that marriage, if you're getting married just for the sake of an extra visa, don't do that because you're going to get caught. But if you have a genuine relationship, you should be fine. Now, a genuine relationship with someone normally has some evidence. You'll have text messages, you'll have photos. Maybe you went on some sort of vacation together. Maybe you've lived together. Maybe you share, I don't know, maybe you share some property that you own together. There's various things. Now, I don't know what you have, so I can't tell you exactly what you would have. But there are various things that happen when you're in a relationship together. And so what you need to do is to show evidence of that relationship, whatever that is. Be prepared to show evidence. And then be honest with the CO. If the CO says, why did you get married after you won? You literally will say, well, because we were already in a relationship, we love each other, and we couldn't imagine being apart. So we both want to go to America. There is nothing wrong with that, right? That's basically it. I talked about 2021. So yeah, covered that question. 2023 winner from Africa region. My case number is 8K. DS submission is on May 16th. When will you be your 2NL? Firstly, your DS submission date has nothing to do with anything, right? Honestly, it drives me nuts that people are still talking about this. In DV 2022, it made a difference. In DV 2023, it really isn't going to make a difference. Now, your case number is not current yet. So when you go current, you will probably find that your case has been processed. It may not be. Maybe that will, be a little bit later. But right now, the case number is under 5,700 for November interviews. So the very earliest you could be interviewed is December. But you'll only be in December interviews if your DS-260 is processed, right? So, so just wait, no panic. And if you get pushed to January, it's no problem. The green cards they give out in January are the same as the ones they give out in December. So, don't stress about this stuff, okay? You'll be fine. Your case number is, you've got a low case number. You should be happy with that. If someone wins and they're not living in the country they're born in, do they have to go to the country for the embassy interview? No, you process where you live. You have the interview where you live, right? You don't have to go back to that home country, okay? Khalifa says, my father won DV 2023 and he's 63 years old. He has a required education and work experience. Is he okay to get the visa given his age? Technically, yes, he's okay to get the visa, right? Now, let's talk realistically. 63 years old is no spring chicken. Is he independently wealthy? Does he have all the money he's ever going to need in his life? Or does he need to make a living when he comes to the USA? When you come to the USA as a new immigrant, the first 2 or 3 years are a hard slog. It's difficult. It takes a while for you to establish yourself. If you're in the middle of a career, even if you've got a good career, you tend to go backwards in your career. It's hard. It's very difficult, right? And quite honestly, it's a young person's thing. It's not for older people. Now, if your father is independently wealthy, then that might be okay. But if he isn't independently wealthy and wants to survive in America, he'll have to get a job that will support him. He'll have to work until goodness knows when. When will he have a pension that will pay him? That's going to take a while to develop. There's all sorts of real difficulties. Now, technically, could he get the green card? Absolutely, he could. But there is going to be a concern that he should have and will have, if he's got any sense at all, about how he's going to make a living in the USA, how he's going to pay for a home, right? Most 63-year-olds in America have probably, many of them own their own home, right? And they've paid off their mortgage. So they're going to go into retirement without a mortgage and without rent to pay. How's your father going to do that when he's got rent to pay or he's got a mortgage? And it will take him 2 or 3 years to become financially set up, right? So those are the difficulties you've got. Not so much a technical problem with his age, just a sort of a practical problem. I was 50, I think, when I got my green card. And that was already quite difficult. It was, and I was pretty comfortable money-wise. So, if you're not in a really strong position financially, I can imagine it would be a lot more difficult. Okay. All right. AS 2022, 20K. Oh, Omar, I've already answered you. If someone wins, do they still have to get vaccinated? If they've got a brain, yeah. This bullshit that's happened about people not wanting to get vaccinated because they've listened to all this crap about the vaccination changes your DNA, or that there's a chip that Bill Gates is implanting, or that it wasn't tested properly, or blah blah blah. What a bunch of shit, right? There are plenty of diseases that have been eradicated from this world because of vaccinations, and the COVID vaccination is a sensible idea. People that don't understand that, I really question whether they have the intelligence to make it through an immigration process, quite honestly. That's how I feel about it. I feel that strongly. Remember, my mum died because some asshole didn't think it was sensible to put a mask over his face to avoid giving my mum and other people in the old people's home COVID. So my mum died because of an asshole, right? And that's the same stupid thinking as people that won't get a vaccination. They only consider themselves. They don't consider anyone else. So, a vaccination not only protects you, but it reduces the chance that you will get the COVID virus. Therefore, it reduces the chance that you'll be sitting on a bus next to someone else's mother or grandmother, and that person gets the virus and dies, right? So it's not about your bloody choice. It's about what you do for the community as a whole. And you understand that other people have got a right to live and move around without getting the virus from your stupid ass because you didn't get the vaccination. So if you don't want to get the vaccination, stay the hell wherever you are, right? Literally. I don't care about having more idiots in this country that don't want to get a vaccination to support the rest of this community, right? Have I made that clear? I hope so. Oh, there's my rant for the day. So go get the vaccination, MF. There you go. What are some of the documents in Europe? I've already talked about that one. Thanks for the updates. How is STK Embassy of Sweden? It's fine. Your AS 3300, you're not current yet, but it's fine. Stockholm's absolutely fine. I've unlocked my case and resubmit March 2020. What? I have unlocked my case and resubmit on March 2023 because I need to delay. Okay. You want to delay, and you think that you can do that by unlocking. The bad news I have for you is that unlocking isn't anymore. It used to be a reliable way of stopping the DS260 processing going any further, and it used to be a reliable way to make sure you didn't get interviewed. But that changed a few years ago. And the simple unlocking of your case doesn't guarantee that you won't be scheduled early. A better way to do it would have been to delay your DS260 processing. Don't submit it for a while. But of course, everybody's been nervous about DS260 submission. If I delay that, will I ever get processed? And so everybody's probably submitted early. So I don't know that you'll be able to delay your interview that long. You'll just have to wait and see what happens. Good luck with that, though. Mister, I would like to know, how is it going, the DV 2020 and 21? So go right back to the beginning of the video. I explained that as fully as I can right at the beginning of the video because I knew I was going to get those questions. What are the kind of background checks which are being done? So they are mainly security related. There are some background checks that are simply there to establish your identity, your family relationships, whether you are married or single, as you say you are, whether you've got family members, right, and who you're connected to. There are some background checks that are like that, and they use various methods to establish those things. But there are also some background checks that are about the protection or the security of the USA, about terrorism, essentially. So they will do things like looking at your education and your work career history to see if there's anything that's alarming on there. So, for example, if you lived in Iran and you worked on making nuclear weapons, they probably want to talk to you, but it's probably not going to go well for your DV lottery, right? If you were educated in biological warfare, they probably want to speak, they're probably going to take concern about that. If you traveled anywhere in the Middle East, there could be concerns. There are also some African countries which have had wars where they probably are going to take a little bit more interest in you because they're going to check your name against other databases for people who participated in the wars. And sometimes they just do a random check of your name, and somebody else's name comes up on their database that's very similar to yours. Or somebody else is in their database, their terrorism database, and that person is somehow connected to you through Facebook or something else, right? So it can appear to be quite random, but that's how things work, right? And let's not forget that the DV lottery itself is a data collection exercise, right? They get 20 million names, addresses, every year. It all goes into a central electronic database, and they're able to build up pictures of information about people in other countries. That's very valuable data to them if their intention is to keep America secure and safe. So that's what they do. DV 2024, is passport requirement a must before or it's removed? It's removed. It was blocked in DV 2022 and 2023, and they didn't do what they had to do in time to re-implement it for DV 2024. So it's definitely gone in DV 2024. It's not in the instructions. I've just published the instructions the other day, and sure enough, there's no passport requirement in there. Okay. Hi, Brit7. I have interviewed in 16 days in Abu Dhabi for the 2023 program. Do I need to take bank statements with me to the interview? As I haven't seen this as a requirement in any of the instructions. No, there are things that you don't see in the instructions as a requirement that are still a requirement, right? The immigration laws in this country, one of the laws that there is that for any immigrant of any nature, needs to not become a public charge. A public charge is when you need to depend on the government for financial assistance, right? And so one of the things that they're establishing at the interviews is how you're not going to become a public charge. Sometimes you can satisfy that concern by showing bank statements. Sometimes you can show it by an I-134. Someone with a very good education in a very lucrative type of role, for example, IT programming, for example. Somebody might be less likely to be asked about how they're going to make a living in America. But but do something that says, yes, I'm going to be able to support myself in the USA. There are some times when applicants tell me they were not asked anything about bank statements or any financial matters. Yeah, that could be true. There are some CEOs that probably don't ask it, and there are certain scenarios where they don't ask it. But generally speaking, any interview experience that I read, there's usually one or two questions in there that are generally there to establish what the person is going to do in the USA, right? What are your plans for when you go to the USA? What sort of work will you do? What are you qualified as? Oh, it says here you didn't qualify for anything, but you're going to be an accountant in the USA. How's that going to work, right? Or you're qualified for accountancy, but you say you're going to be a lumberjack. That doesn't seem to match, right? And so, they will ask, and they often ask some questions that are designed to establish how big a risk you are for public charge. Okay. So yeah, take some bank statements. You should have a minimum of $10,000 per person in your bank account in order to satisfy that concern. Sometimes more, and a far more reliable way of doing that is by having an I-134, which is filled out by someone in the States who is prepared to be your financial sponsor. It creates no financial obligation on that person, but it still is helpful for the CEO to see that somebody in the States is going to be there for you if you need some additional help, right? Someone watching from UAE. Hi, Fabrice. Okay. Jonathan Coletta. Hi, Bit. Do you know about some DV 2023 interview in Buenos Aires, Argentina? I have CM 400, published both bulletins, but I haven't received any news yet. I don't know specifically. So I know there are a bunch of interviews already arranged in October and November. I've seen people reporting that they've had their 2NLs, but I haven't got any way of proving which embassies have or haven't taken interviews. I suspect that there probably are some in Buenos Aires, but I'm not 100% sure. Okay, so and the fact that you're delayed a little bit, don't worry about it. It's okay. You'll be interviewed a little bit later. It partly depends on how quickly your DS-260 is processed, right? Well, it 100% depends on that. I've got a little sore throat here, so excuse me, sipping. During filling the DS-260, I forget the Facebook, Snapchat, and TickTock identifiers. That should affect my visa process. Facebook is a social media application. TickTock, strictly speaking, isn't. But you should have listed your Facebook account. If you're a DV 2023, I would unlock and add the Facebook account because you don't want to be creating an impression that you're trying to hide something, right? So if you didn't include that, why didn't you include that? Have you been saying something against America? Are you connected to friends where they're saying something against America, right? So you need to be a bit careful about that. And if I were you, I would unlock and add that. And if your next question is to say, oh yeah, but I'll be delayed if I unlock, then you don't understand what I've been trying to explain to people for some time. You won't be delayed. And even if you are delayed, it's better to be delayed than to be denied, right? So, but anyway, I'll get off that soapbox for a minute. Hi, Britt. If I miss my appointment schedule and asked them to unlock my application and they did, do I still have a chance to get another appointment? I don't really know. So if you're talking about DV 2022, no. If you're talking about DV 2023, yes, you've got a chance. But if it's DV 2022, you've probably blown it. So you have to tell me your case number for me to give you sensible answers, really. Hi, Brick. Can someone be current with AF52K at the moment? Because I saw someone with 2023 AF52K plus current. How? No, they're not current. They could be a DV 2022 case and current, but no, not DV 2023. That's not current at 52K. Are DV immigrant visa rejections that you can appeal in court? Thanks. AD, not really. So there's this concept of consular non-reviewability. Basically, it says there is an accepted principle that the CO at an embassy externally, right, not in the USA, when they make a decision, you can't officially review that. There is no formal official appeal process for that. There are some times when a consular officer will or an embassy will change their decision based on new evidence being presented to them. So let's say in the In the interview, they say, well, you don't meet the education requirements. And you follow up the next day and show them the education document that they assumed you didn't have, or you prove your education in some way. It's possible to get a reversal of your case, but generally speaking, no, there's no formal appeal process. Okay, but again, if they make a bad decision, that if you're early enough in the year, there are some channels you can go down to try and help that problem be repaired, but it doesn't always work. Interview date is in October. I can't get the passport renewed. It's in month 12. What's the solution? The solution is you use the passport you've got. You enter the USA, and while you're in the USA, you apply for your passport and renew it that way. You may need a travel document. You may need to explain to the embassy CO that you're not going to be able to get a longer valid passport. But I don't know why you say you can't get a new passport. I don't know the reasoning behind that. So, but generally speaking, most people can get a passport. It just takes a bit longer. If you're from Afghanistan, for example, at the moment there's a big difficulty in getting passports, but you can get one. It just takes longer, and you might have to pay some money or something. Justin, hi Simon. My mum won DV 2023 interview in 2 weeks. We can't find her high school cert, but we have her law advocate degree. Can we bring this and just use work experience? If she's been, if she went to university as with a bachelor's degree, then went on to study law, then a lot of COs will take that as enough evidence that she's met the education requirement. A lot of them will. Some of them stick a little bit more carefully to actual evidence, and they want to see the high school. And so, for that reason, if she can take proof of her work experience, if her work experience is as something in the legal profession, for example, then it's quite likely that she could be approved based on that work experience as well. So she should take as much information as she can to the interview, both in terms of proving her education and proving her work experience meets the required level. Okay, do both. Tamjet, hi Simon. Is it okay to unlock my DS260 to change the address for the green card to be posted? Yes, you can. Although that particular one, to be honest with you, changing the address in the USA, if you haven't been interviewed yet, just do it at the interview, right? You can change that address at the interview. You can also change that address at the port of entry, which is the arrival airport when you come to the USA for the first time. Okay, so but do the earlier one of those options, right? You could unlock for it. It's just not necessary to unlock for that. The Salambas. Hi, Britt. My wife is in the process of changing her surname. We would like to know if she can use my surname to apply DV 2024 or use the current surname on her passport, which is her father's name. She's in the process of changing her name, right? That's like I'm, in the process of, of winning the lottery or something, the money lottery, but I haven't won it yet. Right now, today, I don't have that money, right? So I can't claim to be, a multi-billionaire because I've just bought a lottery ticket. In the same way, your wife has started a process, but she hasn't changed her name legally, right? So now, if she changed her surname because of marriage to you, then the marriage document itself is probably evidence of the name change, right? So you'd have to explain a little bit more carefully, but essentially, no. What she should do is enter the lottery using the name that is her actual name on the day she enters the lottery, the proper legal name, right? Do that. Don't predict what it's going to be when she's selected. Don't do that. Okay. Goo Lord. That's an interesting name. My family and I have successfully migrated to the USA through the DV program. We're currently in Nashville, Tennessee. Wow. You're very welcome. God bless you too. I don't believe in God, but God bless you. And Nashville, Tennessee, it's an interesting place it's a great fun place. And a lot of people, it's a lot cheaper than here, for example. So I was talking to a couple of friends last night, and a lot of people from my area are moving to that area, around Franklin and areas around Nashville, just because it's a nice place to live. It's just very humid in the summer though. But anyway, enjoy it. I'm in 2023 group. I submitted DS260 form. Is there anything else I've got to do? No, you just wait now, Sophia. Just wait. Hello, Brit Simon. DV winner of 2023, 49K. I played single, but my girlfriend has given birth to a baby girl this year, June 18th. Okay. Should I add the baby in my DS260 form? Yes, you have to. So, Joseph, you are a father. You're a biological father. You're a father. Even though you're not married to the mum, you have to list that baby in your DS260. If you were somehow deciding between you and the mother that you were taking the baby, I don't think this is realistic, but you were taking the baby to the US, you would then create a DS260 for the baby, right? But in most circumstances, if you've got a girl pregnant, she's had the baby, you're happy, as a family, the most logical thing is marry the girl and all three of you go to the USA. But at the very minimum, even if your plan is that you're going to go to the USA and the mum and the baby are going to stay here, you still list the baby, but don't create a DS260 for the baby, nor the girlfriend. Obviously, you can't take a girlfriend. You would have to marry the girlfriend, right? Hope that's clear. Murtaza, how are you doing? I get your messages occasionally. So you've entered the US. However, I've not paid for my green card yet. So is it important that I should pay for it fast before the visa expires? You're not going to get your green card until you pay that fee, right? The two things that needed, they won't start producing the green card until you've entered the USA and paid the fee. You could have paid the fee before entering the USA or after. It doesn't make any difference. But those two things have to have happened before you get your green card. Now, the visa itself, when you came into the USA, the visa had an expiry date on it. You don't have to have your green card before that expiry date. But when you came into the USA the first time, the visa was endorsed. It was stamped, essentially. It became your proof of being an LPR, a lawful permanent resident. And that lasts for up to 12 months from that initial entry, right? And you definitely want to get your green card before that point. So hurry up and pay the $220. Make that a priority, right? It's not that much money, right? Just go ahead and pay for that so you get your green card relatively soon, right? There's no minimum age to apply, says Mohammed, correct? But the requirement of a high school education for each principal applicant at the time of application will effectively disqualify most persons who are under 18. Mohammed, you've copied and pasted that from various government websites. That's exactly what the government websites say. So I don't know why you're making that statement in that way. Maybe somebody else asked a question. I don't know, but that is an accurate statement. Yes, and I'm almost 100% certain you've copied that because I recognize the text. I've read all of the stuff about DV lottery for years, right? So that particular statement I recognize. What are the kind of background checks? Already talked about that. Joseph Conte, I think I already answered that. Yes. Answered that one. Let me look again. Here we go. Hello, Mr. Simon. I asked KCC multiple times to change my interview place, and they replied with auto non-related mail every time. Is it because my DS260 isn't processed yet? Okay, so a couple of weird things here. So it really helps me to answer your questions if you give me your case number, right? And your case number is always the year, the region, and the number range. I don't need to know the case number precisely. I just need to know, are you in the 20,000 Africa range for 2023 or, 2,000 Asia for 2023? I just need to know roughly, right? It helps me. Now, you've asked multiple times to change the interview place, and they reply with an auto non-related email. That's weird. That's sort of telling me that you're not putting the right information into your request. When you write to KCC to unlock or to change interview location, those sort of questions, you have to provide your full name, the full case number with the leading zeros, right, and your date of birth in the correct format. So, so it sounds like you're not giving them that information. If you don't give them that information, you get this auto reply that says, when you're talking to KCC, you have to give us these pieces of information. They tell you how to send them an email. And so if you're not paying attention and you're not reading that email, you're probably going to keep on going around this loop. Okay. Now, the next thing I would say for you is, why are you changing your interview place? They will base your interview based on your home address, right? Your current home address. So are you changing your interview because you've heard horror stories from DV 2022 about this embassy is bad, this embassy is good, go there? If you have, ignore all of that DV 2022 stuff, because it's not going to work that way in DV 2023. Depending on your case number, you may have no reason to change your interview place, because things are going to be different in DV 2023. And if you're not going to be current for 6 months from now, then there's really no reason to be changing your address based on what happened last year, when you're not going to be interviewed for another 6 months, right? So just slow your roll a little bit, as they say in America. Slow your roll. I've listened to your last interview with Jesse Bless. What a great guy Jesse is. And he made a remark on those who got denied entry to the USA due to the 9645. I think it's a Muslim ban, right? He said it's a grey area. How come, and why is the subject off the table? It's not off the table. Why are you saying it's off the table? The Muslim ban affected people in DV 2020, but what he was saying is that it's not clear in the DV 2020 Gomez case or the 2021 cases if anyone's affected that way. He's not. There's no clarity yet about how that will be applied to people that were affected by the 9645 ban, right? And so it's not off the table. It's not that anyone's ignoring it. And please don't jump to the next nonsense thing, which is, oh, it's blatant racism. It's not racism. It's just they're fighting for the DV 2020 and 2021 cases. When they've done that, they'll try and negotiate the exact terms of how people do various things, including some of the people affected by that particular ban, right? But the reality is also when Biden revoked that ban on day one of his presidency, he suggested there should be a review performed by the government to see whether they could go back to previous years and help people who are denied. And what that review came back and said was, it's not going to be possible in all cases, including some of the DV cases. So in years like 2017, 2018, 2019, those years are probably not going to be able to be helped. It's going to be possibly, maybe possible in DV 2020 and maybe 21. I can't remember if it affects anyone in 21. Okay. Okay. Why is it that amongst the qualifications on job experience, soldiers are not considered? Because killing people isn't really a very useful, skill. That's one reason. Oh dear. No, look. A basic soldier, a non-officer soldier, is not at the level that is required in terms of professional experience, right? Now, look, I was joking a little bit about killing people, a little bit. The reality is there are some professions, there are some levels within the military services that could qualify someone for the DV lottery, but they would have to be in some sort of supervisory position. They'd have to be The general rule for work experience is that the job that you've performed for 2 years has to be a job, and it's 2 years out of the previous 5 years. It has to be a job for which you need 2 years of training or experience, right? Which generally in the military tends to lead towards officer class, officer level jobs, right, or positions. And so a basic soldier, like a basic plumber, isn't going to qualify on that basis. That's basically it. So, so that's why, essentially. Sorry about the killing people quick, but there you go. Most people in the military never get to fire a gun, so not in anger anyway. Okay, so there you go. Okay, just finding another question here. My number is almost 23,000. Which month do you think I can be interviewed? So I can't answer that because you haven't given me the region and the year. I guess you're talking about 2023, but I can't answer it. You have to give me the region and year, otherwise your number is meaningless. Oh God. I have to keep on saying no to these things. Yeah, a second. So I'm going to try and multitask here and send a text. Hang on 1 second. On a live session. Okay. All right. Okay, let me see if there's any more questions here that could be interesting to answer. DV 2023 selectee, I have 16K. My passport for which I initially applied for the DV program is expired. No problem. I used a new passport while filling the DS260. Will this be an issue? No, it's fine. No issue at all. That's absolutely fine. The passport requirement is blocked. It's removed from DV 2023, so there's no problem at all. E4A, in the October visa bulletin, chargeability for Africa is 5,700, except Egypt 1,700 and Algeria 5,600. Does it mean each country has 5,700 except Egypt and Algeria? What it means is, oh shoot. Sorry, wife's having some problems. Oh, okay. Now, what it means is, firstly, Africa cases up to 5,700 are current in November and October. But cases in Egypt are set a bit lower than that. Now, the 1,700 number they're talking about for Egypt, or the 5,600 for Algeria, those numbers are within the 5,700, right? Those countries don't get their own number ranges, if that's what you're implying. That's not how it works. The numbers are differentiated by region. So there could be an Africa number 5,601, and there could be an Asia 5,601, and there could be an EU 5,601, right? The regions are all their own numbers. But all it means for Africa is that Egyptian cases can only be interviewed if they're under 1,700. Algerians only if they're under 5,600. Any other African, it's got to be 5,700 or below. Actually, it's below 5,700. It's not when it says in the visa bulletin the case number is 5,700. Then actually it means 5,699 is the highest case number that could be interviewed. The number that is listed is not eligible to be interviewed at that time. Okay. Margaret, is the selection for DV 2022 over? I've been waiting for my 2NL, but haven't gotten it. When I emailed KCC, they sent me a message saying my case is current. I'll wait for email. Unfortunately, Margaret, you're probably not going to get your interview, and the program finishes in a few days' time on Friday. The reality is they had 119,000 people selected for the lottery. They processed DS260s, so DS260s were submitted for about 103,000 people. There are only 55,000 visas, right? They scheduled interviews for about 72,000 of the 103,000. So there are about 30,000 people that never got an interview. Generally speaking, those people who didn't get an interview were ignored by certain embassies. But what the government did was they said, okay, we can't control Accra Embassy, for example. We can't tell Accra Embassy to interview all of its people. So what we're going to do is we're going to schedule other people at other embassies, and those other people took the visas. And so eventually it meant that if you were stuck at one of the embassies like Accra that didn't do anything, then that embassy basically cost you your chance. The government did what they could do. They've issued as many as they could issue. But again, 119,000 selected, 103,000 want to proceed and get their DS-260s processed. It was always going to end in a train wreck. And the reason that it's a train wreck is that the government threw away their golden tool, which is the visa bulletin. They made everyone current, which meant that all the high case numbers could get an interview and low case numbers lost out. It shouldn't be run like that. That's the wrong way to run the DV program. I understand why they did it. I've talked about that many times before. But when they went current, if people remember, if they were watching my videos back in sort of February and March, when they went current, I said, this is going to be chaos. This is going to be a problem. And I knew why. And I was explaining why at the time, but some people are just rejoicing. Oh, I'm current. Everything's going to be wonderful. God will look after me. So it didn't work out so well. So unfortunately, Margaret, it's a situation where not everybody can get the visa when they invite so many people. It's a sad reality. And so, yeah, you're probably not going to get your interview because, think about it. What would they do? Set it up tomorrow for you to go and have an interview on Thursday or Friday this week? It's too late. You've got to have a medical before then. No, it's too late. Okay, I'm afraid. Good luck. Apply again. Maybe you'll get lucky again. Some people do win 2 and 3 times, by the way. What are the chances for high case numbers now that we have 2 visa bulletins with the same numbers? The visa bulletins with the same numbers, I explained on the day that happened why that might have happened. I speculated 2 things. Number one, that it could have been a mistake, that they just copied and pasted the numbers. And I think that still may be a possibility, frankly. But it seems less likely now than when I talked about it before that was the case. The other reason I gave was that that DS-260 processing is probably moving so fast that without increasing any numbers at all, significant number of people were then able to be interviewed because they've become DQ'd, documentarily qualified. Their DS-260 is processed. That's what that means, right? And so they didn't have to move any numbers at all. Those 2 visa bulletins don't necessarily affect the trajectory for high case numbers. High case numbers are at risk this year. There's no doubt about that, right? Unless you've not been paying attention to what I explained to people, there is risk for high case numbers. And for sure, there's going to be some numpty, some muppet running around saying, God will provide, just trust me, everything will be okay. You're Africa 90,000, but you're going to be just fine. It's not going to work like that, right? Because, this year, if they process DS-260s faster, that means more people can be eligible for interview. The visa office will have all those numbers earlier, and they will control the movement of the visa bulletin a bit more carefully and a bit more cleanly than they did in DV 2022. And so high case numbers will probably miss out. Now, where that happens, what number range that happens at, I don't know. I can't predict that right now. We don't even have the data. But it's really not got anything to do with these 2 first visa bulletins. It's just the way it is, and it's the way it should be, frankly. You've got to understand, when you're a high case number, it's like you've been selected for a soccer team, and there's 11 players on the pitch, but there are 5 players on the bench, right? If any of the 11 players get injured, you might get a chance to play. But otherwise, you're just going to sit on the bench the whole time, the whole game, right? And you may never get a chance to play. You'll never get that, that moment on the pitch, right? That's the way this lottery is. There are people with low case numbers, they're on the pitch, right? They're going to get to play. Then there are people who are on the bench, they're in reserve, and they're hoping that people on the pitch get injured or tired or don't play well. Right? But so that's how this works. If you're a high case number, you're in reserve. And the low case numbers have the right to be processed first, and they will be this year. Okay. AF23 6900. Why do you think Africa in general doesn't take all the visas allocated to it, such that said visas are then reallocated to other regions? Elvis, is not always that way, but there are various reasons. Now, some people like to go on about racism and everything else, and I don't subscribe to that. Those things are not true. In DB 2022, there were about 14,500. Let me get these numbers up because I can do it from memory, but I want to be sure of what I'm saying. 14,382 cases for Africa got scheduled for an interview. And for EU, there were 11,002 cases. So Africa had 3,380 cases more people scheduled than EU, right? More cases scheduled, right? However, for the issued numbers, and I'm not going to sort of deal with the AP and that sort of thing, just the issued numbers. The issued numbers show that 9,768 cases, which is 16,800 people for Africa, got issued, right? And for EU, 20,255 people got issued from only 8,700 cases. Now, Africa got 3,500 more scheduled interviews, has 1,000 cases more cases issued, but has 3,200 people less, or 3,400 people less issued. How did that happen? It happened mainly because the derivative rate in Europe is higher than Africa. That's how it happened, right? It's not a racial thing. The government processed more cases for Africa than it did for any other region. It scheduled more cases for Africa more than any other region, right? And yet there's been less issued, and it also issued more, more cases, not people, but more cases in Africa than any other region. But the derivative rate is lower in Africa. There's more single people or less number of kids. The refused rate is higher. The no-show rate, particularly in Africa, is higher than in EU and the other regions. And so if people don't show up for their interviews, or they do show up for their interviews, but they don't meet the requirements, they're going to get refused, right? But still, Africa were scheduled more often than any other region, and they have had more issued cases than any other region. Just the reality is there's just less people on each case on average. The number of EU people being issued shows that the derivative rate in EU is about 2.3 or something, and the derivative rate in Africa is about 1.65, I think it is. So there's a big difference there. That's essentially the reason. Okay, but like I say, some people like to try and make smoke when there's no fire, and they try and dress that up as some sort of evil government doing evil things. Well, the evil government didn't tell people in Africa to have less kids or be married less often. I mean, come on, let's use some brain power. Simplest, how you doing? DB 2023, I think I already answered this. Yeah, already answered that one. Helps if you don't repeat questions. Please don't do that. Georgia. Since you only have approximately 6 months between your medical and entering the US to activate your green card, can I just go to the US for, say, a few weeks and then return to my home country to pack up my life? Yeah, absolutely you can. There is no minimum amount of time you have to be in the USA before you leave. So you could enter the US today and you could get on an afternoon, in the morning, and you could get on an afternoon flight back to your country. There's no minimum time. There's absolutely fine. You can do that. It's very understood by COs or immigration officers rather that you need time to pack up your life, as you call it. And so quite often people go to America to do an activation trip, as we call it, and then come back to their home country. And later on, they quit their jobs, they sell their house, they sell their car, they pack up their belongings, and then they go to the USA. Right? That's very normal. Very, very normal thing. If DV 2021 cases start to process, well, I already talked about that. Can we change our interview location? Yeah. Because I'm from Afghanistan, the US Embassy closed after Taliban. Blah. Right. You will deal with all of that later, right? But we have to first of all get the appeal process through. You certainly will have to change your embassy location. That's very clear, because Kabul is closed, obviously. My case has been put under administrative processing for long. I really don't know the reason, in that it got expired. Then again, I renewed it. Do you think I have a chance? I don't know. Until the 30th of September, everybody's got a chance. Can't quite understand your message there, but there you go. Salio, I have a question about the Dev Lottery, Diversity Lottery. You're following me on all the social media platforms. Very smart of you, young man. My question is, can doing YouTube videos be considered as work experience? No, not really. Not unless you are doing it for a company who pay you a regular salary, and you're making an actual professional living from that. Look, I do YouTube videos, right? I'm monetized. I get, I don't know, $20 or something a month, whatever it is, from my videos, right? It's not an income that would support my job. It wouldn't pay my cleaner, wouldn't pay my gardener, right? It's not enough money, right? So I can't claim to be a professional YouTuber because my YouTube income, such as it is, isn't a living, right? And even if it was, what would that be? What work experience would that be? It takes no skills, no qualifications to be a YouTuber, right? And so it's not at the level that would qualify you in terms of work experience. So essentially, no. Unless you are extremely successful as a YouTuber, you've got millions of followers, and if you are, please, how did you do that? Could you tell me? And you're making a great living from it, that would be a different thing. But if that's the case, I assume you've got a company that's receiving the income, that's paying you a wage. It would be a different thing. Then you'd be a business owner. Okay, but other than that, no. Hi, sir. I didn't a mistake in my original entries in my date of birth. So else to do now. I want to fill the DS260. Okay. Horrible English, but reading between the lines, you made a mistake in your date of birth. So what do you do now as you're filling in the DS260, right? You fill in the DS260 with your correct date of birth. When you access your DS260, you'll have to always use that bad date of birth that you put in there. But when you fill in the DS260, you need to correct it. And generally speaking, as long as there's no other sort of errors, or they're not suspecting fraud, they will accept that sort of correction in the DS260 from the original entry, and you can be approved, right? Many people make minor errors. So, as long as they don't think you did it deliberately to cover up for the fact that you entered 58 times or whatever with different birthdays, then you should be fine. If you did enter multiple times, then you should be expecting to be disqualified. So there you go. Is AF 45,000 a high CN? Okay, you haven't given me a year. Let's assume it's 2023. But I can't tell you if it's a high CN, right? I did work out for someone earlier today that they had a case number in 2023 of AF 51,000. I checked against DV 2022 and found there were 25,000 case numbers, actual case numbers, below case number 51,000. You may think that there are, if your case number 45,000, that there are 44,999 cases before you. That's not the case. And as I say, I checked today for someone, their case number is AF 51,000. In DV 2022, that case number would have had 25,000 case numbers in front of it, right? Of those 25,000, some people never apply. Some people go to the interview and get denied. Some people, fill in the DS-216, never show up for the interview. There's all sorts of things, right? And so I can't say for sure that 51,000 in DV 2023 will have a chance, because I don't know yet how many case numbers there are in front of case number 51,000 or 45,000 in DV 2023, because we don't have the data. And we don't know how many holes there are. The holes are the cases that are not real case numbers that are in front of you, right? We don't have that information yet. So I can't make an estimation. I can't guess at this point. And anyone that does try and guess is simply revealing that they don't understand what they're talking about. That's literally true. That if I were to give you a guess, I would be an idiot, right? And if somebody else gives you a guess, they're just an idiot. They don't know what they're talking about, and they don't even know enough to know that they shouldn't make a guess, right? Because we don't have the data yet. That's the reality. Now, when we have the data, we'll see. And you can ask again in a few months' time. We'll have the data on January 1, and then we'll know a little bit better. We won't know 100%, but we'll know a little bit better what your chances are. Okay. There you go. How's DV 2024 registration going to be different from DV 2023? Almost no difference, except that the form won't ask for a passport number at all. It's going to be more like the old form that didn't ask for a passport number. That's the only thing. What do I think about DV 2021? I talked about that after right at the beginning. I covered the good luck cases, Gomez, all of that right at the beginning. Okay. Mid, I just wanted to say thank you for all the information you provided. Couldn't have gotten through the process without your help. Thank you. I really appreciate your efforts. 22 with visas issued. Congratulations. Glad to read it. People ask me sometimes why I do this. And it's for stories like that. I like to hear about people receiving their visas and coming to America and making a great life. So thanks for dropping by and letting me know. I appreciate it. I know place of birth should be a city, not district, state, country. But what if I'm not born in a city? Place of birth on my passport isn't a city. So towns are smaller than cities, right? And sometimes there are districts which are within towns. And sometimes you're born in a village, but the village is within a district, or it's within some region that has got a name, etc. And you just choose, like, you can put the name of your village down, you can put the name of your town down. It doesn't have to be a city name. It can be a district. You can say, it depends on exactly where you're born. To give you a straight answer, depends exactly where you're born. But use some common sense, right? If you feel that the village name is, not where you're born, and be careful, because some people are told all their lives, you were born in that village, and then you find out that actually you were born in that town over there in a hospital, right? And so be careful. Get your data, your place of birth from the birth certificate, because that's ultimately what the proof will be, right? and just list whatever it says on your birth certificate. That's the simplest way to make that call. Okay. Okay. Couple of questions from Vadim. My wife, she's the winner, now works as an accountant, but we put DS260 that she wants to be a software engineer. She did some web courses. Is this a problem? Should we unlock? No, no problem. No, that's fine. You know what she should probably do though. A bit of constructive advice. If she wants to be in software engineering, she should work with financial systems in software engineering. Okay, because in software engineering, the ability to understand a financial system, to understand credits and debits, and how a GL, an AR, an AP, all of those things work, you can get into ERP software and make very good money. That's how I started in America. And for a programmer can be well paid, right, in America. A programmer that understands a business system like an accounting system can be even better paid. Right, so yeah, don't let your wife go too far away from accountancy, but just push her towards something that uses her skills and lets her learn new skills and earn a lot more money. There you go. Sukubana ganadora del 2020 trains Esperanza que tenemos tomada puesta. Okay, so I talked about firstly, questions in English, please. I happen to speak Spanish, but I don't speak all the languages, obviously. So questions in English, in inglés, por favor. But I talked about DV 2020 right at the beginning of this video. So please go back to the beginning of the video and listen to my answers on that question then. Thanks, Tam, about my mother. Yeah, that's it's tough, and it still pisses me off to this day. It was an unnecessary death, just like a million others in America. Hope you're doing well. I'd like to know how I can be sure. Right, I'm going to do a couple more questions and then call it a day. Right. How can I be sure that the photo has all the DV requirements? Is there a place in the form when you can double check? Yes. Read the instructions. Read them now. They're available now. I've published them in the last few days. And there's a checker where you can make sure that the dimensions are correct. And it's got lots of examples and information. It's all available on the government website. So, you can go and check how the photo should look, how big it should be, and everything else, right? There's no excuse to getting the photo wrong. Okay, one more question. And then we'll call it a day. Okay, we'll take this question. Timothy, what are the timelines on the videos about life in America that you wanted to release? I think they'd be a great help. They would be, I'm quite sure. It's just very complicated. And what I decided it's going to be very challenging to make one video or even a series of videos. And I'm probably going to have to make that into a book. So I'm writing a book now, which will help people in that endeavor. And I'll make the book available, for a low charge or whatever, just to help people. So that's what I plan to do. Timelines for that, I don't know, over the next few months. It's not going to be a few weeks, it's going to be months. One of the problems I have is obviously limited amount of time because of all the time I spent doing this. All right, okay, everybody, they'll call it a day. But thanks for joining me today. I appreciate it. And please do subscribe to the channel and get ready for DV 2024. Anybody can enter DV 2024. If you're a winner in previous year, even 2023, you can enter DV 2024. There's no harm in doing that. So go ahead and do that. Particularly if you're a high case number, go ahead. Okay. All right, everybody. Thank you very much. Cheers now. Bye-bye.